Transformers 1 is a new animated film that comes out this weekend. It is directed by Josh Cooley. This is a movie that features the voice talent of Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, Scarlett Johansson, John Hamm, Keegan-Michael Key, among other people. Pretty talented voice cast, although a little bit unorthodox. We'll get to that later. So this movie is essentially an origin story for the Autobots and the Decepticons in Transformers lore. It takes place on the planet of Cybertron. The story is essentially about two brothers in arms, two best friends, Orion Pax and D16, who will eventually grow to become the sworn enemies of Optimus Prime and Megatron. And this movie is about all of the crazy shenanigans and things that happen that lead to all of that happening. It's a Transformers movie. You know what you're here for. Transformers have been around for a long time, and I feel like Transformers is one of those franchises that has a lot of divisive parts to it, depending on which side you're sitting. You could be an OG Transformers fan. You came up with Transformers in the 80s and the 90s, like you're a big fan that way. The live action movies led to a new batch of fans, and it also led to some divisiveness, especially towards the end as the movie started to fall off in quality. So some people might be coming into this movie not really sure what to expect. We've had a Bumblebee movie, Transformers movie, I think that came out last year. What was that one called? Rise of the Beasts? Beast Nation? Transformers? And the Beasts. Regardless of what side of the fandom you sit on, whether you're just an OG Transformers fan, whether you're a new fan, or if you're just a casual, you don't really care about Transformers, you just want to see something good, I've got excellent news for you. This movie, I feel like, will satisfy you no matter what side of the ledger that you're sitting on. This is a crowd pleaser. This is an excellent movie. It's well made, and there are just so many things to love about it. For a movie that's going to be fully animated and it's going to take place on a robot planet, you need the visuals for that thing to be popping. You can't afford to have that shit looking bland or dull or boring, and luckily the visuals in this film are so immersive, they're so colorful, they're so fluid and detailed. Shout out to all those amazing visual effects artists who worked on this movie. They did a great job with it. This is one of the most gorgeous looking films, animated or otherwise, that you're gonna see this year. A fully realized Cybertron with a robot city of Iacon. All of the Transformers themselves have a lot of little details to their designs that really pop and really stand out. What also stands out is the voice talent. Now, I'll admit the trailers for this movie were, to put it kindly, not good. I will say the voice talent was kind of throwing me off when they first announced the movie. I think the worst fear with voice acting is that the actors who are portraying them, if they're not real voice actors or they don't have a lot of experience, you're gonna run the risk of them kind of sounding like themselves and not really making you feel immersed in the characters. I felt a little bit weird. It felt a little bit awkward, but granted, it got better over the course of the movie. Halfway through the movie, I wasn't even really thinking about it anymore. Part of this could just be because Scarlett Johansson's sexy voice popped up as one of the robots, Alita 1. It's like, oh, Scarlett Johansson's here. Okay, well, everything's fine now. Like, there's nothing to worry about. They did a much better job of embodying these characters, of bringing these characters to life than I ever would have imagined. Robots that will become the icons that we know them as, Optimus Prime and Megatron, seeing that relationship, that dynamic, I thought that was the thing that worked the best about the movie. Of brothers turned into enemies, that kind of has to work, and it has to be pulled off in a believable way, because that is the crux of the story here, not just an origin for everybody else, but an origin for these two as leaders. I'll also say, if you're looking for good humor, Bumblebee is going to provide, or at least the robot who will become Bumblebee. In the movie, they pretty much just call him B, but he is absolutely the funniest thing about the movie. Most of the laughs that I had in my screening definitely came from him. I will say though, this movie's not really a chuckle box in terms of, oh, it's just a laugh out loud, funny, generic kids movie. This movie is actually a little bit darker than you think. Maybe a lot darker than you think. This movie has a maturity to it that you just wouldn't expect in a lot of kids movies, and it would have been so easy for them to go the other way. This movie is a fun adventure and a fun origin story and a fun movie about brothers, but it's also a movie that has some darker themes, some way darker moments that made me question, like, is this thing still PG? Like, is this still a kids movie? A kid can watch this and absolutely be taken aback at like how far they go with certain things. There's some fun Transformers action. It's very fluid, it's very gorgeous, it's very beautiful. I have a very hard time believing any Transformers movie could walk out of this movie saying, nope, didn't like it, hated it, don't think it was that good. Not to say the movie doesn't have a couple of issues, and obviously I'm gonna list them here as I usually do. There is a bit of a jarring tone shift with this movie. Like the first half of the movie, if we can talk about that, it's like a little bit lighthearted adventure. It's got some shenanigans and some crazy things. Overall, it's kind of lighthearted in its approach. There is a jarring tone shift that happens halfway through the movie where things gradually just grow more serious, more dark, more emotional by the end of the film. And the initial transitioning between those two tones did feel feel a little bit wonky. It did feel a little bit forced at first. It does get better over the course of the movie, but I have to prepare you for that going in. I would actually say the thing that irritated me a little bit more about this movie is the fact that it suffers from what I call split head syndrome. Is that syndrome in movies where a movie is trying to be about one thing, and then it has this other thing that's also part of the movie, but then there's like this overwhelmingly other thing. And one of the heads is the story between Optimus and Megatron. The other story is them being betrayed by this other Transformer named Sentinel Prime. There's this whole other story and plot involving other villains that are kind of shown and hinted and teased at. They don't actually have a role to play here, and it felt kind of jarring because it felt like a lot of that stuff was set up for a sequel. When the movie focuses up and it's mostly about these brothers and about the story that they find themselves wrapped up in, that's when the movie's at its best. So yeah, the movie suffers from three-head or Ghidorah syndrome, and I just feel like that kind of splits the focus for the movie at times and makes certain things more impactful than the other things that they're focusing on. Beyond that, guys, this was a badass Transformers movie. I loved it. It's a perfect blend of charm and emotion and action and fun moments. There's a lot of heavy lore stuff that they also throw in here, so if you're a big time fan, be on the lookout for some Easter eggs. Transformers 1 was a dope ass movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I think you will too. I'm gonna give this one the highest rating this channel can offer, Superman Prime. Those are my thoughts on Transformers 1. Tell me, are you gonna see that movie this weekend? What's your favorite adaptation of the Transformers so far? It can be animated, it can be live action. Let me know in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel. Stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.